3 days later, Daniel was all dressed for work, adjusting his tie in the mirror, when Melissa suddenly appeared behind the bedroom door like a villain in a suspense movie. Arms crossed, her expression was a mix of fury and determination. "You're not going anywhere until you give me the money I ask for," she declared, blocking the door like a human roadblock. Daniel sighed, his patience already stretched thin. "Melissa, you know how generous I am. I've explained this to you. My account is having issues, remember? You were literally there when I was on the phone with the bank officer yesterday. This issue has affected a lot of financial activities at the office, too." Melissa's eyes narrowed. "So you mean to tell me you can get just 1 million naira from anywhere, even without going to the bank? Daniel, are you really this broke?" Daniel shook his head and exhaled deeply. "You know I don't deal in cash. The government's cashless policy is serious, and I don't keep that kind of money lying around. Just be patient, my love. I'll make it up to you soon." But patience wasn't in Melissa's dictionary. Her eyes widened dramatically, and she stomped her foot like a spoiled princess in a poorly written soap opera. "I said no way. I've already placed the order for my shoe, and I cannot cancel it. Do you know how perfect it is for our wedding colors? It's customized. If I miss this chance, I may never find it again." Daniel stared at her, his tone now calm but firm. "Melissa, why are you shopping for a wedding when we haven't even fixed a date? My mom doesn't want us to stress over anything. She already said she'd hire a wedding planner and a team to handle all the purchases. We don't need to do all this." Behind the closed door, Carolyn was listening to every word, leaning so closely that her ear was practically glued to the wood. A sly smile spread across her face as she muttered under her breath, "How I go take tell boss say, he no suppose give this woman 1 kobo. This sophisticated madam na real scammo." Carolyn shook her head in disbelief, continuing her internal monologue. "Men of nowadays Zeph. Dem go see better wife for ground God-fearing. Natural beauty, simple, but dem no go look at him twice. Instead, not the one with fake hair, fake nails, fake eyelashes, fake butt, and fake everything dem go choose. Later dem go day cry. Women are wicked. I day pity this my boss." As she lost herself in thought, the door swung open suddenly. Daniel stood there, staring at her with raised eyebrows. "Carolyn, what are you doing here?" Carolyn froze, eyes darting nervously like a child caught stealing candy. Before she could stammer out a response, Melissa barged in with her usual sharp tongue. "I told you, Daniel, I can't stay in this house with this thing you call a maid, or whatever charity project you're running here. She's disgusting." Daniel pinched the bridge of his nose, clearly drained. "Melissa, not now. Carolyn, get back to your duties." Carolyn quickly nodded, biting back the sarcastic retort bubbling on her lips. "Yes, sir." She scurried away, but as soon as she turned the corner, she whispered to herself, "This madam no say her own don finish. I go expose her scam life one day." "Not small," Daniel sighed and calmly said. "See you later," he said, trying to escape the chaos. Melissa wasn't done, though. She called after him, her tone syrupy sweet, but loaded with expectations. "Don't forget your promise, so. I'll be expecting to see the alert." Daniel waved her off without turning back. Carolyn, watching from a safe distance, chuckled to herself and muttered, "Oga no say will alert day come, but he no go be the one way madam day expect." As soon as Daniel's car rolled out of the driveway, Melissa wasted no time asserting her self-proclaimed authority. She called out loudly, "Carolyn, come here this instant." Carolyn shuffled into the living room, wiping her hands on her apron. "Yes, madam," she said, her tone laced with both politeness and caution. Melissa crossed her arms and gave her a sharp look. "You must go to the second street and wait there for my package." The delivery agent said he'll be there sometime between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Carolyn's eyes nearly popped out of her head. "Ah, madam, I don't think you listen to yourself. How can I stay on the main road from morning till night just to collect one package for you? I'll be delivery man, no get phone to call when he reach." Melissa's face darkened like a storm cloud, and in an instant she raised her hand, clearly intending to slap Carolyn. But before the hand could descend, Carolyn's reflexes kicked in. She caught Melissa's wrist mid-air and brought it down slowly. "Madam, I beg, no try ham," Carolyn said, her tone now serious but calm. "Boss never beat me before, and I no go allow you start the tradition. Plus, you know say boss never marry you proper. If I tell him say you and slap me, you fit pack your load go back your papa house. You wanna risk ham?" Melissa froze, her hands still suspended in Carolyn's grip. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish of water as she tried to process the boldness of the statement. Finally, she snatched her hand back and hissed loudly, muttering, "Nonsense." She adjusted her robe and pointed toward the door. "Get out of here now and go to where I sent you." Carolyn nodded, but not before adding her own twist. "No wahala, madam. I go go the street like say I be security guard for the road. I'll be you want make I wear uniform join." As she walked off, she began murmuring under her breath, loud enough for Melissa to hear, but soft enough to deny later. "Nah me go stand under hot sun like roadside statue for package way no be my own, madam, you wicked no be small. Boss no even no say nor devil e carry come house, chai." Melissa fumed silently, but chose not to respond, glaring at Carolyn's retreating figure as the house help shuffled out, still muttering to herself. "This package better be gold oh. If no be gold, nah real wahala you day find." Andrew was in the kitchen, expertly flipping pancakes, while humming a cheerful tune. Melissa burst in, practically glowing with excitement. "Andrew, guess what?" she exclaimed, leaning against the counter with a mischievous grin. Andrew turned to her, raising an eyebrow. "What? Your wedding date has been fixed." Melissa rolled her eyes so hard it was a miracle they didn't pop out. "Wedding? Maybe in your dream, chef. That one chance man hasn't even thought about it." Andrew chuckled. "All right. So what's the big news?" Melissa smirked and straightened up like she had just won an award. "I sent Carolyn out of the house. She be gone all day." Andrew's face lit up like a child on Christmas morning. "Wow, that's wonderful. So you mean I have you all to myself today?" Melissa nodded smugly. "Of course. I'm a real master planner. Since Daniel is too busy playing since, let's enjoy ourselves right under his nose. Who's the real boss here?" Andrew laughed, wiping his hands on a kitchen towel. "That's why I like you, Melissa. But, about the pregnancy thing, what's the plan? Daniel hasn't even touched you yet. It's going to blow up if we're not careful." Melissa leaned against the counter, thinking. What do you suggest we do before it escalates?" Andrew sighed dramatically, tossing the kitchen towel aside. "Maybe we should get some of his property documents, drug him, and have him sign them over. We didn't come here to sell groundnuts, Melissa. This is premium grade one chance business." Melissa cackled like a cartoon villain, shaking her head. "Andrew, you're evil, and that's why I adore you." Just then, a loud cough echoed from the hallway. Both of them froze like deer caught in headlights. Melissa turned toward the sound and found Carolyn standing there, arms folded, smiling smugly. "Carolyn," Melissa barked, her voice an octave higher than usual. "What are you doing here? I thought you were supposed to be gone all day." Carolyn tilted her head innocently. "Ah, madam, As I day stand there, one man come and tell me to go back home. He say the package will reach you here even if you no leave house. Melissa's face turned crimson with rage. Without thinking, she stormed toward Carolyn and slapped her across the face. Carolyn touched her cheek in shock, blinking at Melissa. You slapped me, madam, you really slapped me. No wahala oh, we go settle ham. Melissa, suddenly wary, returned to the kitchen, where she and Andrew began whispering furiously. Do you think she heard anything? Andrew asked nervously. I don't know, Melissa hissed, but she's acting too calm for my liking. Their paranoia was interrupted by the sound of voices coming from the sitting room. Familiar voices, their voices. Melissa and Andrew rushed into the sitting room and froze in horror. On the laptop screen, iPad, and two iPhones strategically placed around the room, a crystal clear video of their entire kitchen conversation was playing on loop. What the hell is this? Melissa shrieked, her eyes darting around the room. Carolyn was seated comfortably on the couch, watching the video. Ah, madam, una acting sweeto. Netflix no get this kind suspense. Melissa's rage boiled over. She stormed back into the kitchen and reappeared with a knife, pointing it at Carolyn. Delete it now, or I'll cut you into pieces. Andrew, not to be left out, cracked his knuckles and balled his fists, ready to pounce. Carolyn stood up slowly, walking toward one of the phones on the stool. No problem, madam. I go delete ham. Before she could reach the phone, the door burst open and Daniel walked in, flanked by two policemen. The room fell silent. Melissa dropped the knife, and Andrew's fists unclenched, as if someone had just deflated him. Daniel looked around, his face a mix of disbelief and fury. Well, what do we have here? Carolyn stepped forward, grinning. Boss, you no go believe wet in my eyes darn see for this house. But no worrying, I get full video evidence. She gestured at the devices proudly. One of the policemen nodded. Looks like we've arrived just in time. Melissa's jaw dropped as she stammered. Daniel, I can explain. Daniel held up a hand. Save it. You can explain everything. At the station. Carolyn couldn't resist a parting jab. Madam, you say I day useless, but see now. Nami be MVP for this house. Daniel smiled. Yes, you are the most valuable player. Daniel clapped his hands slowly, the sound echoing through the room like a drum roll. Before we proceed, let me invite a very important person to this conversation, he said with a smirk. Turning toward the door, he called, Uncle Timothy, come in. The gateman strutted in with exaggerated swagger, his uniform freshly ironed, and a smile that screamed, I'm the star of this show. He saluted dramatically and declared, Every day is for the thief, but one day is for the owner. He paused for effect, glancing at Melissa and Andrew, a triumphant judge delivering a verdict. Daniel chuckled and clapped him on the back. Thanks for the acting, Uncle Timothy. You've been a solid part of this operation. I'll never forget this. Melissa and Andrew's eyes widened to the size of dinner plates. Wait, acting, Melissa stammered, her voice shaky. Daniel ignored her and turned to Carolyn, who was sitting calmly, her face a mixture of grace and quiet triumph. Dropping to one knee, Daniel looked up at her. Mom, I'm so sorry for everything, the insults, the humiliation, everything you endured to protect me. Thank you for being the best mother anyone could ask for. May God bless you and prolong your days, Mom. Melissa and Andrew blurted out in unison, their voices almost cracking. Melissa's face contorted in confusion. Wait, you mean your mom? This woman is your mother. So, you planned all this before I even got here? Daniel stood and gave a slow nod. Exactly. My mother wanted to make sure I wasn't marrying a gold digger. and you've done nothing but confirm her suspicions. We wired the house before your arrival and recorded everything. But what shocked me most," he glared at Andrew, his voice rising, "was that you had the audacity to bring your husband here to live in my house." Melissa's knees buckled, and she grabbed the edge of a chair for support. Husband, Daniel, no, it's not what it looks like. Baby, I can explain." Daniel's face was set like stone, his voice cold. "What haven't I done for you? I gave you everything, love, support, a home, and you betrayed me like this." Carolyn rose from her seat with the calm authority of a queen delivering a final judgment. "My son, don't waste your tears on this thief. She wanted to reap where she didn't sow. Let's put an end to this circus." Turning to the doorway, she called out, "Margaret, come in." The moment Margaret entered, Melissa let out a strangled gasp, and Andrew visibly flinched. Margaret, dressed in a blue gown, strutted in like she owned the place. Well, she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Melissa, long time no see. Still borrowing clothes on credit, I see." Melissa's legs gave way, and she crumpled to the floor in a heap. "Margaret, please." "It's not what you think," she wailed. Margaret folded her arms and raised an eyebrow. "Oh, it's exactly what I think. You owe me money, Melissa, lots of it. And today, you're going to pay up, one way or another." Andrew knelt to help Melissa, but Carolyn cut him off with a glare that could slice through steel. "Don't bother. Policeman, do your job," she ordered, waving her hand dismissively. The officer stepped forward, cuffs jingling, as Melissa let out a dramatic shriek. "Wait, please, I can explain everything." Daniel turned away, disgusted. "Explain it in court," he muttered, his voice thick with disappointment. As the police hauled Melissa and Andrew toward the door, Uncle Timothy smirked and called out, "Madam Thief, next time, try sense before you come for my boss." Carolyn patted her son's shoulder as they watched the con artists being led out, a victorious smile on her face. "Next time, pick your targets wisely. Not my son. Not in this house." She then turned to her son and said, "Some lessons in life are expensive, my son. But at least now, you'll never settle for fake love again." A few weeks later, Melissa and Andrew, dressed in oversized prison uniforms, were working grudgingly on a massive farm under the hot sun, alongside other inmates. A stern-faced warder strolled over, his whistle dangling from his neck like a trophy. "None of you is getting breakfast until the first phase of your task is complete," he barked, his voice slicing through the grumbling of the inmates. A wave of complaints erupted, claims of hunger, exhaustion, and unfair treatment. But everyone kept working, knowing the warder's threats weren't idle. Suddenly, Melissa let out an exaggerated groan and dropped her hoe dramatically. "Ah," she cried, clutching her stomach. Andrew rushed over, abandoning his task. "Is it that stomachache again?" he asked, his tone dripping with concern. Melissa nodded pitifully. "When will this end? I swear those prison doctors didn't treat me properly after I miscarried our baby." Andrew sighed heavily, his face a mix of regret and disbelief. "You know, this mess really cast big time. You didn't even bother to investigate Daniel properly before jumping into the plan. Now, see where we are." Melissa glared at him, her pain momentarily forgotten. "You're blaming me. What about you? You went along with everything, not noticing his mother's move." "It was his mother that scattered everything. That woman is a devil in disguise. She bewitched me. Totally bewitched me." Before Andrew could respond, 3 inmates sidled up to them with a smirk. "You two have been chatting for a while now, without lifting a finger. What's the plan?" Another scam. The background erupted in laughter as another inmate shouted, "We heard how you conned 3 billionaires before landing here. But Daniel's mom, she finished you too." Melissa and Andrew stood frozen, their faces crimson with embarrassment. The warder, now tapping his baton against his palm, bellowed from a distance, "Back to work, all of you, or kiss your breakfast goodbye." Andrew sighed, picked up Melissa's hoe, and muttered, "From scamming billionaires to farming cabbages, life really humbled us." Meanwhile, Melissa shuffled back to her spot, grumbling, "I swear, one day, I'll scam my way out of this farm." The other inmates roared with laughter, making her regret the outburst even more. "If you scam out, you will scam in. That is a sure promise." 8 months later, Daniel finally tied the knot with Tonia, a beautiful, charming woman who had passed every single one of Carolyn's infamous mother-in-law tests with flying colors. The wedding was a grand affair, but it wasn't the glitz or glamour that made it special. It was the visible happiness radiating from both Daniel and Tonia. For Carolyn, the moment was bittersweet. At last, she whispered to herself during the vows, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, "My son has married the love of his life, and not a gold digger this time." Fast forward 18 months, and Carolyn was seated comfortably in Daniel's plush living room, laughing heartily as she played with her adorable grandson. "Kai, you look exactly like your papa," she cooed, tickling the baby's chubby cheeks. The baby giggled in response, and Carolyn's laughter filled the room. Her visit wasn't just for babysitting duty. It was to enjoy the peace, joy, and harmony that now defined Daniel and Tonia's marriage. Tonia emerged from the kitchen, carrying a tray of snacks and juice. "Mama, I still don't know how I survived all your tests," she said, grinning as she handed Carolyn a glass of juice. Carolyn raised her glass of juice with a sly grin. "My dear Tonia, you survived me. But let me remind you, some of those tests were not for the faint of heart." Daniel, lounging on the couch, chuckled, "Mama, don't downplay it. You nearly gave her a PhD in survival skills. Remember when you pretended to lose your engagement ring?" Tonia groaned, but she was laughing too. "Oh, don't remind me. Mama accidentally dropped her ring into a bucket of soaked beans and told me to find it before it was time to cook lunch." Carolyn waved her hand like it was nothing. "Well, a good wife needs to be resourceful. And you found it, didn't you?" Daniel shook his head. "Let's not forget the chicken chase challenge." Tonia threw her head back, laughing. "That one was wild. Mama sent me to the backyard to catch one of her stubborn hens because she claimed it was perfect for Sunday soup. I was out there 4 hours. When I finally caught the hen, you came out and said, 'Oh, I just wanted to see if you could do it. We're eating goat meat today.'" Carolyn shrugged, feigning innocence. "How was I supposed to know you'd be that good at it? You impressed me." Daniel was laughing so hard he had tears in his eyes. "And don't even get me started on the midnight fire drill." Tonia buried her face in her hands. "I thought that was a real emergency. Mama barged into my room at 2 a.m., banging pots and pans, shouting, 'The house is on fire. Save something important. I ran out holding your baby picture, Daniel.'" Carolyn burst into laughter. "And that's when I knew you were the one. Anyone who saves my son's picture in a fake fire deserves to stay." Tonia couldn't stop laughing, but she pointed at Carolyn. "What about the market bargain test? That one nearly broke me." Daniel's eyes lit up. "Oh, I never heard about that one. Spill, Tonia." Tonia shook her head dramatically. "Mama gave me a list of things to buy at the market, but she included the most ridiculous instructions. She told me to haggle for everything, even the air I was breathing. I had to convince a tomato seller to lower her price by 5 naira just to pass. Carolyn smirked. And you did it like a pro. A woman who can manage money is a blessing to her husband. Daniel couldn't help but add his favorite, and the silent treatment test. Mama, you're a genius for that one. Tonya groaned. Oh, that was torture. Mama refused to speak to me for 2 whole days. She'd just stare at me, shake her head, and sigh loudly. I had no idea what I'd done wrong. Turns out, it was a test of patience and emotional intelligence. Carolyn nodded approvingly. And you passed with flying colors. You kept your cool, didn't shout, and even made me tea to ease my stress. That's a woman who knows how to handle family drama. Daniel burst into laughter. Tell her, Mom. Tonya deserves an honorary degree in Carolyn tactics. The things you made her do. A. Carolyn leaned back, a mischievous twinkle in her eyes. Don't make it sound like I was wicked, Abig. I was just making sure my son didn't marry another Melissa. Tonya laughed, shaking her head. Wicked. Mama, you made me wash an entire pile of clothes without telling me the washing machine was hidden in the store. Daniel choked, laughing. You didn't tell me that one. And who told you to stay? Carolyn quipped, raising an eyebrow. You could have left, but you stayed. That's how I knew you were the one. Tonya joined in the laughter. All the time you told me to cook for 20 guests on short notice, and I didn't know you had already ordered food from a caterer. Carolyn slapped her thigh, cackling. That was classic, but you didn't complain. Instead, you delivered. That's how a good wife behaves, prepared, resourceful, and respectful. Daniel leaned forward, shaking his head with a wide grin. And let's not forget the fake fight you staged with Uncle Timothy, making Tonya choose sides. Carolyn waved him off. That one was light work. She sided with me, didn't she? Daniel and Tonya smiled brightly. Carolyn leaned forward, her face softening as she looked at Tonya. You see, all those tests weren't to frustrate you, but to prepare you. Marriage isn't easy, my dear, and I needed to be sure you had the patience, love, and strength to handle life with my son. Tonya smiled warmly. And I'm grateful, Mama. Your tests made me stronger, and they made me fall even more in love with Daniel. Daniel smiled, reaching over to take Tonya's hand. And now, every day with you feels like a blessing. Carolyn, touched by the moment, picked up her grandson. My grandson, you're lucky, oh. You'll grow up with the best parents and the happiest home. But don't worry, sure, I'll still test your future wife when the time comes. Everyone erupted into laughter, the room filled with warmth and joy. It was a scene of love, family, and the kind of happiness that only comes when you've overcome life's toughest tests and passed them with flying colors.
Hello, besties. Please share your thoughts in the comments section and subscribe to this channel. There are more interesting stories to watch on this channel. Please check the description below for the links.
Thanks so much for watching. God bless you. I love you all.